Um, I saw a comment earlier. Actually, it's from Albert as well. If we want to pull that up, because I think this will. I'm going to do a little flip flop and go back to the topic that we were originally going to kind of start off with about Vaughn. That's right. Um, I, I mean, Albert, if there's something you'd like to share that has come out since the stuff that I read earlier today, I will disagree, and this is why. The sheriff's department or the criminal there was a recommendation made clearly to bring charges. That is why a DA is involved, and that. So I just disagree. You don't bring in a DA if there's no charges. And that to me is almost the exact opposite to what that comment was. It is, if there was no smoke, right, nothing there would not be a DA involvement. It would just simply be no charges. DA has decided to drop everything, blah, blah, blah. Instead, it was DA is going to make a decision. And that tells me that there's a recommendation of charges. The question is, what charges? And that does not look good for Vaughn. And to tie back to the Broncos salary cap, that does not look good or that looks better rather for our salary cap. Now you can argue whether or not it looks better for the Broncos as a team overall or not, because that would potentially mean us not having Vaughn. But at the end of the day, if any of this turns out to be true, and certainly the text messages or emails that were there, no, that was the Parker PD said they wouldn't file. Parker PD, as part of what I read, stated that they passed it on to the DA. Sorry, Albert. My father was a sergeant here in Toronto for, we'll just say, a long time. and my whole family is all officers in various areas all through Canada. So the police department investigates. They don't actually personally bring the charges. They bring the charges that they want to file to the district attorney. The district attorney, and this is true in the U.S. by the way as well. I know because my uncle that lives in the States in California is an LAPD detective, recently retired. So I have a little bit of an idea what goes on down in the U.S. as well. What I can say, I'm a policing family, and my mom was a lawyer, so we can figure that one out. So when you look at how this is done, the police will basically bring to the district attorney the charges that they believe should be filed against an individual. The police themselves typically don't actually bring criminal charges. It's the DA that brings the criminal charges against the individual. So what I saw today, and again, if you have anything new, this is just what I read, right? So if something has changed or is different, this is just what I know to be true from what I read earlier today. The DA is now considering whether or not they are going to bring those charges. And what that typically means is they are weighing their options. Do they believe that they can win the case against Vaughn in court? Because clearly what that means is that the DA has charge recommendations from the police that is before them. And now the DA is going to be making the decision on whether or not they want to pursue this in the court of law.
Yeah, I read that those exact same I don't know if you want to say statements, but I'm going to just say they're rumors, Rich. But I believe you're right. The DA is, and I'm only saying this because I've watched so much Law and Order. I don't have family in law enforcement, folks. So don't quote me on this. But I do have a very good friend who's a detective here at Chicago, who recently retired. Shout out to you, Gail. Love you. But if the DA is not going to pursue charges unless they have sufficient evidence to get a conviction and win. So unless they can do that, unless the detectives or whoever it is that brought them the recommendations within a certain allotted amount of time can bring them evidence to say, look, we have proof that this happened, A, B, C, and D, then it goes to, conviction, then it goes to trial, and then that's pretty much, that could be the last nail on Vaughn's career, not just in Denver, folks.
Well, that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah. But you also have to keep in mind that he wouldn't be the only player in the NFL that's been charged with anything, alleged or not, and has gotten beaten it. So that's not to say it would be the final nail in his NFL career, but it could be the one that gets him cut from the Denver Broncos organization.
Right. And what it comes down to also, just to kind of add on to that, my father did undercover work as well. As you can tell, I have a real thick beard. My dad did a lot of undercover work with biker gangs, because if you look at me, I could pretty much fit in. And I look just like my dad. Um, so when you look at what they're doing, the DA is looking at strength of case. So they know that they're going to be going against some pretty substantive lawyers and a pretty good legal team. So the DA is going to try and make sure that the case that they have on each of the various charges, and they're going to gauge whether or not it makes sense to bring those charges into court. That's what I was saying. The officers are the investigators. The officers are the ones that help enforce the law, but they don't impose the penalties as a result of violating the law. That's the court, that's the judges and the DAs and the court's jobs, because everyone should be deemed innocent until proven guilty. So the DA wants to basically ensure that they have enough information at their disposal in order to convict if that's there. Again, tying this back to the Broncos cap situation, and also remember we saw 6 foot, you and I actually spoke about this. It was really close after our last show last week, actually, where there was the rumors that the Broncos were likely going to decline Vaughn's option. I think they're holding that pretty close to the chest intentionally, because I believe that if we are going to be going after Deshaun, I would imagine that what our plans are probably going to be, and this is whether or not the Texans even want him or not, would be to maybe sign off and then eat some of the money, that $7 million that he's guaranteed, and then trading the rest over to Houston. I could see the Broncos doing something like that.
Yeah.
And including Vaughn, a Hall of Fame pass rush player, as part of the trade deal for Deshaun Watson, because name and brand recognition alone holds value, especially to a young owner like the son of the Houston Texans former owner, who I think his father passed or something like that. But
yeah, but to you, Albert, and to all our wonderful listeners out there, I'm just going to give you what I think is going to happen with Von Miller. And I think that the worst case scenario is that they decline his option, and the Broncos head brass will probably let this play out to see what happens if he can beat it over the summer and he can come back. And because more than anything, even if he does beat this rap, folks, we have to remember that Von Miller sat out all of last year with an injury. So that Achilles injury or whatever it was, the tendon injury for a pass rusher, if it was his arm, if it was a rib, if it was his head, a shoulder, something else, that's one thing. But when it's your foot, the one thing that pass rushers need to, giddy up, it remains to see how his performance is put out on the field. So that will probably come into making more of a bigger decision for Peyton going into next season, into 2022, in terms of, do we keep Von? Do we restructure him? Get him to re-sign a more team-friendly deal, or do they just let Von test free agency?